Welcome back to another explainer. Look, let's just get right into it. The era of the 50-person engineering team for a mid-market SaaS, yeah, that is officially dead. Today, technical leverage is rapidly replacing raw headcount. And honestly, if you're still trying to just hire your way out of a roadmap bottleneck, you're already behind. Because in this AI-first era, the goal isn't to build a bigger team anymore, it's to build a much more powerful one, where one single engineer can literally do the work of 10. Okay, so let's unpack how this breaks down. The old 2021 model was all about headcount growth, right? Managing these crowded, hectic teams and just suffering through skyrocketing burn rates. But fast forward to 2025, and the game is entirely about engineering leverage. We're talking about sleek, small, agile teams where your return on investment drastically outweighs the sheer number of heads you have sitting in a room. We are right in the middle of a massive paradigm shift. 10x output? That's just the new baseline now. Things like manual data entry, repetitive coding tasks, or running basic QA, those are simply no longer human responsibilities. But this raises a really critical question for leadership. How do we actually escape that roadmap bottleneck without just writing bigger checks and hiring our way out? How do these AI-native teams manage to scale their output so dramatically without scaling their seating chart? Well, that brings us to Section 1, the Scalability Paradox. See, traditional engineering scaling is a trap. The basic equation is simple but painful. More people equals more friction. Adding headcount just skyrockets your cost of communication, creates this massive mountain of management debt, and eventually causes your overall product velocity to completely flatline. Teams that try to scale via hiring end up moving slower, they're way more prone to manual errors, and they really struggle to handle the complexities of dynamic markets. And think about the financial drain here. Growing the old way means you're adding, 10 to 20% to your payroll every single quarter? And that's just to keep up. It's an unsustainable burn rate that ultimately just suffocates your innovation. So let's look at the solution in Section 2, the leverage framework. To transition successfully, you really must redesign your organization around 3 essential pillars of engineering leverage. This is basically your blueprint for building that high-impact AI-native team. Let's break down exactly how these 3 pillars actually function. Pillar number 1 is orchestration over execution, meaning your software architects shift entirely away from writing manual, boilerplate code. Instead, they're spending their time strictly on the strategic and creative aspects of software delivery. They basically stop being typists and start being conductors. The second pillar is autonomous code infrastructure. By bringing in AI tools to instantly draft code and generate ideas, you drastically shrink the time it takes to go from a brainstorm to a live deployment. AI steps in as the ultimate productivity booster, handling the heavy lifting of the actual drafting. And then the third pillar shifts your focus to automated quality and security. We're talking about computer vision and machine learning that can inspect products in real time. This completely removes human fatigue from the QA process. It's an incredible risk mitigation tool that never sleeps, never blinks, and never loses focus. Moving right along to Section 3, the AI native stack. Let's look at how this workflow actually plays out in the wild. Imagine a chatbot takes an input, like a customer support ticket. From there, a workflow automation tool like Zapier bridges that ticket straight to ChatGPT, which instantly drafts a bug fix. Next, an AI-assisted QA system validates that build. And finally, a serverless cloud infrastructure pushes the update live. It is a completely automated, hands-off pipeline from problem to solution. But to pull that off, you've got to deploy the right tools. You use Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT not just to spit out text, but to automate repetitive repository tasks and analyze trends. You deploy Zapier to create those vital workflow automation bridges, freeing up time for more strategic tasks. And on the back end, you leverage serverless computing, like AWS Lambda, to run code in response to events. You achieve these massive economies of scale, and you do it with zero physical infrastructure maintenance. Now, a quick warning, Section 4, pitfalls and hidden risks. Because look, accelerating speed without a strategy, that is extremely dangerous. First off, you have to watch out for algorithmic bias. AI-driven decisions in your code or HR processes can absolutely lead to unintended consequences if you aren't auditing them regularly. Second, beware of accountability gaps. You must maintain a human in the loop for critical ethical decision-making because an autonomous system cannot take responsibility if things go sideways. And finally, data privacy. You have to adhere strictly to regulatory standards like GDPR to avoid catastrophic legal debt down the road. Which brings us to our final takeaway in Section 5, systems over headcount. To win this next decade, you really must become what we call a tech systems builder. That means prioritizing process automation and efficiency over raw manpower. You need to replace routine tasks with robotic process automation and AI. You scale your resources via the cloud rather than just endlessly hiring. And as we just mentioned, you always audit for bias and security. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from this explainer today, let it be this. Stop managing people and start managing systems. You have to fundamentally shift your leadership approach from managing sheer headcount to managing highly efficient AI-native workflows. So, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Audit your current sprint today. I want you to identify just one repetitive task, whether it's documentation, testing, or boilerplate, and replace it with an AI-native workflow this week. Remember, knowledge is power, and staying informed is really your only line of defense against obsolescence. Subscribe for more strategic insights into the ever-evolving landscape of technology. Stay curious, keep learning, and embrace the future. What task will you automate today?